sandalwood paste on his forehead. Once Vishakasaki warned Radha of three things that have the inconceivable power to attract people to Krishna: his flower garland, his name, and the mysterious sandalwood paste on his forehead. Hare Krishna. Now, in the book describing Krishna's pastimes with the cowherd boys, we've mentioned this book many times in our discourses. It's called Prayo Bhakti Rasanhava, Rasarnava. It's in chapter 9. It describes that after the cowherd boys decorate Krishna's face, we've gone through that now. The face is decorated, and the girls that decorate. Then I'm very happy to be with all of you again. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pastrita Deshatarane. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So today we are continuing with our mini-series entitled Stimulation for Ecstatic Love, with a particular item we hope may help to awaken our love for the divine couple Radha and Krishna. And that item is, today, sandalwood. Sandalwood. And this will be part 9. Now, one of the many benefits of eventually awakening our love for Krishna will be that we become detached, almost effortlessly, from this miserable material world. Krishna is all.
Can you play from the beginning?
Mataji, it was from the beginning only.
No, this is the second part we're playing.
This is the second part, not the beginning one.
Mataji, actually, this was the 9th part. So should I start from the first part?
Eighth part.
Eighth.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, everyone. A very warm welcome back to our ongoing series on the glories of our most beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastacha Deshatarane. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, the revealer of the Dham. So, today we are continuing with our mini-series on stimulation for ecstatic love, based on Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion, again, chapter 26. And this will be part 8. We have been discussing different articles or paraphernalia of Krishna upon seeing or hearing about or even simply touching, I was reading, help to awaken love for the Lord within the heart of a devotee. We gave the example in one of our first lectures in the series of a mother who, upon being separated from her small daughter, immediately remembers her upon seeing her daughter's little shoe somewhere. A transcendental example is kindly given by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, wherein he writes, quote, "In the Kaishora age, beginning from the 11th year and continuing up to the end of the 15th year, Krishna's arms, legs, and thighs become marked with 3 divisional lines. At that time, Krishna's chest challenged a hill of Marakata jewels. His arms challenged pillars of Indranila jewels. The 3 lines of his waist challenged the waves of the river Jamuna, and his thighs challenged beautiful bananas." One gopi said, "With all these exquisite features of his body, Krishna is too extraordinarily beautiful, and therefore I am always thinking of him to protect me, because he is the killer of all demons. So here, I would like to mention again, as I have many times, how indebted we are to both Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Prabhupada for giving us Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Nectar of Devotion, respectively. Sri Bhana Das writes in his work Kadambari, in the Mangala Charana to that book, verse 7, he writes, it's really nice. Fine literature is not appreciated by a wicked mortal, much like nectar does not go down Rahu's throat, whereas such literature is treasured in the heart of a good soul, much like Hari's chest bears the splendid Kastuba jewel. Now, Bhana, actually his full name was Bhanabhata. He was a 7th century Sanskrit prose writer and a poet. And his works are well read and famous even today. In fact, I was reading many scholars describe him as Banochistam Jagat Sarvam. A nice title. Banochistam Jagat Sarvam. It means Bana has described everything in this world and nothing is left. We told it all. So, in previous classes, we discussed how blankets are very much involved in Krishna's pastimes and thus help to stimulate our love for Krishna. There's a saying that the Lord accepts ordinary things and makes them extraordinary. An example is given. He accepts the feather of a peacock, which is commonly found on the ground here in Vrindavan, and he takes it and places it on his forehead. Or he holds a flute of bamboo, which grows in the forest. Similarly, the acharyas say that he accepts even the simplest of people who approach him for service and transforms them into transcendental devotees who themselves become capable of fulfilling others' spiritual desires, just like a kalpavriksha tree. So the articles we mentioned, like the peacock feather and the bamboo flute, are simple objects, but they are divine, being related to the Lord. And the same is true with the Lord's blanket. This we have been discussing for 2 lectures now. But my dear Prabhus, we're not finished. Today we will discuss more about Krishna's precious blanket, in the hopes that, again, such a discussion will help awaken love for Krishna. And that love is already there. It's hidden within our hearts. That's described by Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 22, verse 107, very famous verse. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunai Shravanade Shuddha Chitte Karaye Udhai. Quote, pure love for Krishna is eternally established in the hearts of living entities. It is not something to be gained from another source. When the heart is purified by hearing and chanting, this love naturally awakens. So that's what we're doing here. We're hearing and chanting. Now, the poet Surdas reveals his sentiments about Krishna's blanket in one of his poems that he really dedicates to Sri Radha. He really dedicates, you'll see, he really dedicates this poem to Sri Radha. He writes, "O friend, look, Sri Radha is the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, and her lover is a simple cowherd boy. Sri Radha sits on the throne, and her beloved sits on the stem of a tree. Sri Radha wears a golden shawl, and Krishna wears a dark blanket." Surdas says, "O friend, There is no good quality in your Krishna. It's only because of the loving glances of our Queen Radha that everyone treats him with respect. Hare Krishna. So therein we hear how Krishna wore, or eternally wears, a dark blanket. It's interesting to note that now, here in Vrindavan, I often see deities, like yesterday I was at the Radharaman temple, a couple of weeks ago I was at Radha Vallabha temple, and both times those deities were wearing dark colored blankets, because it's winter here now. And when I looked more into the matter, I discovered that such blankets that they offer to the Lord are made fragrant before offering with perfumed oils, and are placed near coal heaters to warm them before being offered to the Lord and placed on his body. Such a blanket is called balaposh, Balaposh, balaposh. And furthermore, the blanket, it's described in Shastra that it's light like a feather, warm like a mother's lap, fragrant like flowers, and soft like the tender touch of a newborn baby. The blanket, the deities wear the blanket. Light like a feather, warm like a mother's lap, fragrant like flowers, and soft like the tender touch of a newborn baby. It's deity worship. A side note is that the sadhus here in Braj, they wear blankets called loi. Loi, L-O-I. It's also a dark-colored blanket. It's dark-colored, and it's like very heavy, heavy wool. And centuries ago, these type of blankets were worn by the Brajabasis, like everyone would wear them in those days. And they were sold in a particular marketplace. So much so that marketplace became known as Loi Bazaar. And most ISKCON devotees are well aware of Loi Bazaar these days, which that bazaar specializes in many devotional items. Everyone, ISKCON devotees, they come from the West and they go to Loi Bazaar to buy dhotis and chadars and saris, etc. In my research for this lecture, I discovered that an old tradition in Braj was that if a king or a highly esteemed person would visit a temple in Vrindavan for darshan, the pujari would offer him the maha garland of the deities, mahaprasad from the deities, and in special occasions also a blanket, or the blanket, that the Lord was wearing around his shoulder or around his neck. Now in present day, the culture of giving a maha garland and mahaprasad is still there, but giving a blanket to esteemed persons has now changed to offering like a small scarf. You know, they have some scarves nearby and they touch it to the feet of the deity and they give it to the esteemed person. Just something like this, about that big, not very big. So times have changed. So now, I'd like to share another of Krishna's pastimes that involved his precious dark blanket. This pastime is related by the great devotee Srila Narahari Chakravarti Thakur. Srila Narahari Chakravarti Thakur. In his famous book, Bhakti Ratnakara, it's in the fifth wave, in a section entitled Mathur Mandala Parikrama. Actually, for my lectures, I get a lot of leelas from that book, from that section. So you could say this pastime is one version of the famous pastime of Krishna becoming a boatman and taking Shri Radha and her gopi friends on a boat ride on the Manasi Ganga lake, which we know is at Govardhan Hill. It's one version, just like in the Dankeli, the pastimes where Krishna, taxes the gopis here and there, at different times, different places. In Vrindavan, there's slightly different versions. So this is a very nice version of this particular pastime. Now, Manasi Ganga, the history of that sacred lake is very interesting. Once, upon hearing the glories of Mother Ganges, Nanda Maharaj, Mother Yasoda, and so many other gopas and gopis, they took Krishna on a journey to the Himalayan mountains to take bath, because they heard how auspicious it was to take bath in the Ganga. On the way, they rested for a little while, and at that point, Krishna questioned the need for all of them to travel so far, telling them that, and this is one of my favorite statements, we have favorite verses, this is a famous statement, all holy places reside in Braj. All holy places reside in Braj. This is one of the beautiful features of Vrindavan. Whatever holy places we see in India and throughout the universe and throughout the cosmos, you can find the original place here in Vrindavan. So at this particular point, Krishna stopped everybody and said, well, first of all, he thought of Ganga Devi. And at once, just by thinking of Ganga Devi, her strong current brought her to that spot where he was standing. At the head of this current was Ganga Devi herself. As we know, she rides an alligator, so she was mounted on an alligator. And this darshan of Ganga astonished Nanda and Yashoda and all the gopis and gopas. So at that point, Krishna said, "My dear friends, all holy places exist in Braj. You want to take bath in the Ganga, so Ganga Devi has personally appeared before you here today in Vrindavan. Please bathe in her waters without delay." So it appears they weren't very far. They're just on the frontier of Vrindavan. Krishna didn't want to leave Vrindavan. So Ganga came. So in this way, Manasi Ganga appeared in Vrindavan. And we see her when we go on Govardhan Parikrama, like halfway. Halfway, she's right there at halfway. That's where the Haridev temple is, actually. So she's called Manasi Ganga because she appeared from the mind or the thoughts of Krishna. Manasi means mind. So some, here in Vrindavan, some address her as a river, while others address her as a lake. Now, the currents of Manasi Ganga, I was reading, they flow so swiftly through Govardhan Hill that its powerful waves, or her powerful waves, move even the boulders that line its shores, her shores. So a boatman must be very expert in plying his boat across the lake, especially in the rainy season when thunderstorms often appear. Not an easy thing when the wind comes up and the waves are there. For a boatman to cross Manasi Ganga, it's a real challenge. Her waves are so powerful, they move boulders of Govardhan Hill. So one day, Radharani and her gopis were carrying pots full of different milk preparations to offer to one of their favorite deities, Haridev. We told that pastime. But it happened to be on the opposite, he happened to be that day on the opposite side of Manasi Ganga. So they were thinking they would take a boat. But when they arrived on the banks of the lake, they were disappointed to find there were no boats at the dock. Actually, there was one old, very rickety boat at the far end of the dock. But there was no boatman in sight. Just the boat was there. All they actually saw was a large, like you could say, crumpled up blanket, in one corner of the deck. So disappointed, the gopis were just about to return home when they heard this low, like moaning sound coming from the old boat, like it's described as if someone was stirring from a deep slumber. So Sri Radha ordered one of her maidservants. She said to her, "Dear one, find out where that noise is coming from." So that Braja Gopi, very dutifully, she walked down the landing, stepped onto that old rickety boat, and very cautiously approached the blanket. Then from beneath the blanket came what sounded like heavy breathing. So the Gopi hesitated for a moment, and she looked back towards Sri Radha, who encouraged her with the movement of her hand. So that young Gopi took courage and pulled back that old dusty blanket. And there, lo and behold, lying on the boat's deck was a young boatman who, from the sound of his snoring, appeared to be in a deep sleep. So this Gopi, she turned back to her friends and Sri Radha. She said in a loud whisper, "It looks like a boatman, but he's asleep." So hearing this, Sri Radha herself walked down the pier, and she stood directly over the boat. Then Sri Radha, she cleared her voice and she called out loudly, "Boatman! Boatman!" But he didn't seem to hear. So she called out again, but this time louder, and it's described very beautifully, accompanied by a chorus of her amused girlfriends. Accompanied by a chorus of her amused girlfriends. So finally, the boatman, he stirred a little bit, and he turned over, and then he sat up, rubbing his eyes. And they could see that he was a young man. He was dressed in simple clothes. He had a dhoti and like a sash, and he was actually wearing a cloak with his hair tucked under a well-worn turban. But Sri Radha noticed immediately that he must have been new, you can say new to his profession, because his hands and feet looked very soft and they had no calluses. What kind of boatman is that, who's rowing all day, has no calluses? So she noticed this. So the boatman, he pulled his blanket off and he sat up and he called out, "It's been a long day and I'm resting. Please get yourself another boat. If you're looking for a boat, it's not going to be this boat, or you come back tomorrow." And with that, he laid back down and he pulled his blanket back over him. So at that point, Sri Radha signaled her maidservant to pull the blanket away. Now, Lalita Devi, who's always there to serve Sri Radha, Lalita's her favorite gopi. Lalita gets angry sometimes when Krishna mistreats Radha. Lalita, who was nearby, said, "Hey, wake up, boatman. The queen of Vrindavan wants to cross the river to worship Haridev. Do not delay. Take your oar and ferry us to the far shore. You will be handsomely rewarded, not to mention the fact that you will have the privilege to serve the most chaste and pious girl of Braj." Of course, meaning Sri Radha. So the boatman, he finally sat up again, and after much discussion, it's described, he reached an agreement with Lalita that his payment for transporting the gopis would be what? The remnants of Haridev's, the prasad they served him, the milk products. As payment, he would get yogurt and butter and kheer and everything they had in their pots. But as the gopis began to board the boatman started insisting that it would be safer if they went in 2 trips. In other words, he took one group of gopis over, came back and took another group of gopis over, because he felt the boat was a little small for everybody. But Sri Radha would hear nothing of it, because she doesn't want to be separated from her gopis, and they don't want to be separated from her. So the boatman pushed off from the shore, and they noticed that while he was pushing off from the shore, he was smiling, and he was singing a song about boating on a lake with one's sweetheart. They're looking at him. He's singing a song about boating on a lake with one's sweetheart. So everything went well, for some time. They were making good time across the lake. But about a third of the way, the boatman stopped rowing. He tilted his turban back on his head, and he sat down looking out at the river. So all the gopis, they were surprised. They're all looking at one another like, what's happening? So Sri Radha asked one of the gopis to ask the boatman the following. "Oh, boatman, why have you stopped?" To which came the reply from the boatman, "Dear Braja Gopi, I'm tired and hungry. You all woke me up after a hard day's work, but before I could have my supper, you told me to leave. Plus, you have filled this boat to twice its capacity. And you insisted that I race to the other side. Neither could I have my supper, and neither did you follow my advice that, we shouldn't all pile in this boat. Now, without eating, I cannot exert myself any further." So at first the gopis, they tried to convince the boatman to continue rowing. Then they actually threatened him. But apparently neither tactic worked. So they gave up, and it's described, they gave him access to their pots. That's how it's described. The author, access to their pots. But he shocked them when he devoured everything in the pots. And then he declared, following such a feast, I must take a short nap. Then, stretching himself out on the floor of the boat, he again covered himself with his blanket and said, "If 2 of you girls massage my feet and another 2 my arms, I should resume my rowing much sooner. I could do it much sooner." So then the Lita, she threatened, "Boatman, unless you start to row right now, we will hold you by your hands and feet and toss you overboard into the lake. Now get up." So with that, the boatman, reluctantly resumed his service. Not so reluctantly, we understand, but he appeared to be reluctant, resuming his service. And not a moment too soon, I was reading, for storm clouds began, gathering overhead. And before long, it said a strong wind appeared, like gale force, hurricane wind, along with thunder and lightning, causing the water in the lake to rise. And soon water began to seep into the boat. So shaking his head, the boatman called out over that strong wind, "See, girls, I warned you. I warned all of you together. It would be too heavy a load for this boat. See what's happening? Now look, because it's so heavy and the waves are so strong, my boat is taking on water. So unless you lighten the load here by disposing some precious weight overboard, surely we will sink." So cursing their fate, the gopis had no other choice than to throw their pots overboard. Now, let me tell you that these pots were pure gold. So they're precious, and they're heavy. So they had to throw their golden pots overboard. But even as these Braja gopis watched their precious pots disappear into the depths of the river, the boatman called out again, saying, "Ladies, the boat is still taking on water. Now you have to discard your heavy jewelry." Because gopis were wearing bangles and earrings and nose rings and all sorts of necklaces, fine jewelry, heavy. But the girls, they answered in a chorus, again saying, "Never, never." But I was reading as their skirt hems started to soak up the rising water, they reluctantly tossed their necklaces and bracelets and nose rings and everything into the lake's swelling waves, it's described. But the water in the boat kept rising. So the boatman said, "Ladies, the only way we can keep this boat from sinking is if you bail out the water yourselves. If you bail out the water yourselves." To which the gopis answered very angrily, "We could have done that with the pots you made us throw overboard. We could have done it, but you made us throw the pots overboard, so now what?" And then, as the strong winds continued, whipping the lake into a fury, the gopis just sat there, drenched in water up to their waists. Up to their waists. Critical scene here. All Purnamasi's, Yogamaya's arrangement. So at this point, it's described Sri Radha began feeling extremely guilty at risking her girlfriend's lives. But the author says, not to mention being distressed at the thought of never seeing Krishna again. We should also think like that. Not to mention being distressed at the thought of never seeing Krishna again. So having no other recourse, Sri Radha, she stood up and she raised her arms and she called out to the boatman, "Boatman, please save us." And she just threw her arms around him, like in desperation. "Save us!" She threw her arms around him. Now it's described at that instant, a flash of lightning struck her. When I read that, I couldn't, what? As soon as she embraced the boatman, a flash of lightning struck her. But, Prabhus, the lightning flash didn't come from the clouds above. Rather, it came from the body of the boatman, who, pleasantly surprised, pulled Sri Radha even closer to him. Now, the effect of the boatman's touch at once revealed his real identity to Sri Radha. She knew who this was, but the gopis, who had never seen Sri Radha even so much as look at another man other than Krishna, they were shocked. They were shocked. And they cried out over this howling wind. All together, another chorus. "Lord Shiva, save us. Just as we were about to sink to our watery graves in this lake, chaste Sri Radha tosses us into an ocean of embarrassment." Sri Radha tosses us into an ocean of embarrassment by embracing a low-born boatman. So rather than, saying something, explaining everything to defend herself, Sri Radha reached behind the boatman and from his cloak pulled out, what? A bamboo flute. Much like a magician could pull a rabbit out of a hat. And as Radha held up this famous flute, this Venu, the thunder and lightning stopped. The winds died down. The clouds dispersed. The waters receded, and the gopis' faces lit up with smiles. "Oh," they cried, "it's him!" It's Krishna. "Oh," they cried, "it's him!" Then Krishna is described as pleased with himself as an actor receiving a standing ovation, bowed his head towards the gopis and pulled Sri Radha even closer as she struggled to get free from his grasp. Now the author says the gopis were terribly frightened by this ordeal, and they were still drenched from head to toe. But seeing Krishna standing before them made all the torment worthwhile. That's the word he used. All the torment worthwhile. Now our author, Srila Narahari Chakravarti Thakur, he says, and I'll quote him here, they were, after all, loving puppets in the hands of the Supreme Puppet Master, who pulls strings of love at will, uniting him and his eternal companions upon the stage of his Braja Leela. I'll recite it again. They were, after all, loving puppets in the hands of the Supreme Puppet Master, who pulls strings of love at will, uniting him and his eternal companions upon the stage of his Braja Leela. Then it's described that, then he describes that beneath a silvery moon, Krishna steered the boat towards the nearest island, where he and the gopis changed into dry clothes while joking about the highlights of their adventure. And then once again they boarded the boat, which had, like Krishna, listen to this, cast off its disguise to reveal a golden, jewel-studded luxury craft. The boat had cast off its disguise to reveal a golden, jewel-studded luxury craft, equipped with all necessary things to serve the divine couple, Radhe Shyam. Then as Radha and Krishna reclined on a comfortable couch, some gopis sang, others, they played musical instruments, and a few others steered the boat. They steered the boat through the calm, lotus-filled waters of Manasi Ganga. Hare Krishna. Pure nectar. Shri Brajubhumi Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki. Let us never forget that is the goal of all our practices in Krishna consciousness. So Prabhus, this concludes our lectures on Lord Krishna's blanket as a means to awaken our love for him and his divine consort, Srimati Radharani. Next week we'll be speaking on sandalwood. So many articles in Vrindavan can bring forth that loving mood. So while going to research, I found a few things about sandalwood, and we'll discuss the use of sandalwood in the pastimes of Radha and Krishna as another stimulus for awakening ecstatic love. Now, in preparation for that, I mean like the mood that will accompany that mini-series. We'll conclude today with a verse from Hari Bhakti Vilas, 11th Vilas, text 25 to 31. This will prepare us. Quote, one should meditate on Krishna as he sits on a lotus throne in a very relaxed manner. The throne is placed in the shade of a desire tree that is situated on a beautiful riverbank and surrounded by lakes filled with lotuses and water lilies. The riverbank is situated at the foot of a golden mountain that is decorated with various minerals, chirping birds, and wish-fulfilling trees. Lord Krishna is decorated with a pearl necklace and a flower garland. The throne is covered with gold and bedecked with jewels, and covered by a colorful canopy. After fixing one's mind on the Lord in this manner, a devotee should worship him with offerings of jati flowers. Jati flowers. Then one should offer food to the Lord and his cowherd boyfriends on silver plates. In this way, self-controlled devotees should meditate on Lord Krishna as he is comfortably seated along with all his cowherd friends. Beautiful meditation to prepare us for next Friday. Thank you so much. A goodbye from Shri Vrindavan Dham, and we'll look forward to seeing you in a week's time. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Radha Shama Sundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari Shrimati Radharani ki, Mayapur Dham ki, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtan Yagya ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Jai Jai Sisi Radhe Sharm. Glories to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Once Vishakasaki warned Radha of three things that have the inconceivable power to attract people to Krishna: his flower garland, his name, and the mysterious sandalwood paste on his forehead. Hare Krishna, everyone. A warm welcome back again to our ongoing series on the glories of our most beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. I'm very happy to be with all of you again. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarane. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So today we are continuing with our mini-series entitled Stimulation for Ecstatic Love, with a particular item we hope may help to awaken our love for the divine couple Radha and Krishna. And that item is, today, sandalwood. Sandalwood. And this will be part 9. Now, one of the many benefits of eventually awakening our love for Krishna will be that we become detached, almost effortlessly, from this miserable material world. Krishna is all attractive. And Chanakya Pandit has said, you can't give up something unless you get something better. So we can give up this world because we have the best, Krishna. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:46-21, where Nanda Maharaj says to Uddhava, Smaratam Krishna Viryani Lila Panga Nirikshtitam Hasitam Basitam Changa Sarvana Stitala Kriya. It's very beautiful. As we remember the wonderful deeds Krishna performed, his playful sidelong glances, his smiles, and his words of Uddhava, we forget all our material engagements. But as we know, even more important than forgetting all of one's material engagements or one's material attachments is becoming fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So therefore in the next verse, 22, Nanda Maharaj says, quote, when we see the places where Mukunda enjoyed his sporting pastimes, the rivers, hills, and forests he decorated with his lotus feet, our minds become totally absorbed in him. And we also know that the result of being fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, is that eventually our pure love for him will awaken. Therefore, Shukadeva Goswami concludes in verse 27, quote, thus intensely remembering Krishna again and again, Nanda Maharaj, his mind completely attached to the Lord, felt extreme anxiety and felt silent, overcome by the strength of his love. Overcome by the strength of his love. So let us discuss today how sandalwood in Krishna's pastimes may contribute to that goal of being overcome by the strength of love. Actually, sandalwood has become somewhat of a rare item in modern times, with so much deforestation going on. Srila Prabhupada refers to this fact in a letter to one of my godbrothers, Nayana Birama, on August 22nd, 1971. Prabhupada wrote to him, Malayan sandalwood is famous as grown in Malaya, but nowadays in Malaya there are only rubber trees. But still in the market, the sandalwood is known as Malayan sandalwood. But even in ancient times, sandalwood was a very highly prized commodity. Chanakya Pandit says, in Niti Shastra 2.9, he writes, Shale Shale cha manikyam muktikam da gaje gaje sadavo na hi sarvatra chandanam na vane 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 vane. I like this verse, I use it a lot. There does not exist a ruby in every mountain, nor a pearl on the head of every elephant. Neither are sadhus to be found everywhere, nor sandalwood in every forest. I'll just repeat that because I love this verse. There does not exist a ruby in every mountain, nor a pearl on the head of every elephant. Neither are sadhus to be found everywhere, nor sandalwood in every forest. Now, an interesting fact is that sandalwood paste keeps one cool in the summer and warm in the winter. I think most devotees relate sandalwood to the cooling effect, but actually it also keeps you warm in the winter. It's almost mystical. According to Chanakya Pandit, again, in his Katila Artha Shastra, sandalwood, again known as chandan in Sanskrit, comes in various colors. Rakta, red, Rakta Krishna, which means reddish black, Rakta Sveta, reddish white, Harita, meaning greenish, Rakta Pita, yellowish red, and Sveta, meaning whitish. And last night, I was interested to read how Vaishnava poets often use analogies of sandalwood in reference to the cooling effect association with sadhus has while one is burning in the fire of material existence. Here's a nice one. The poet Paramananda, we often quote, he writes, Shri Bhalaba Nandana Sab Jaga Bandhana Shetal Chandana Tapa Harasa. That's Brajbasa. He writes, the son of Bhalaba, Jiva Goswami, is worshipped by everyone because he is the one who steals the fire burning in the material world and applies the coolant sandalwood paste of the forehead to give bliss. It's so beautiful. The son of Bhalaba, Jiva Goswami, is worshipped by everyone because he is the one who steals the fire burning in the material world and applies the coolant sandalwood paste on the forehead to give bliss. By his numerous writings. Or, here's another one. Chandanam shitalam loke, chandam adapi chandrama, chandra chandana yor madhye, shitala shadusangita. On this planet, the intrinsic nature of sandalwood is that it's very cooling, amongst other refrigerants. More cooling than sandalwood is the moon, and even more cooling than sandalwood and the moon is the association of a sadhu. Wow. And of course, sandalwood plays, as we'll be discussing, an integral part of Krishna Lila. In the very beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam 1.8.32, Kunti Devi poetically refers to this in an analogy. Again, an analogy, this time about Krishna's birth. She says, some say that the unborn has taken birth for the glorification of the great pious kings. And others say that you took birth to please King Yadu, one of your dearest devotees. You appeared in his family as sandalwood appears in the Malaya hills. Nice analogy. You appeared in his family as sandalwood, which is so much appreciated, appears in the Malayan hills. And in the 10th canto, chapter 90, verse 19, the gopis use a similar analogy, you could say a romantic appeal to Krishna. They say, quote, O Malayan breeze, what have we done to displease you, so that you stir up love in our hearts, which have already been shattered by Govinda's sidelong glances. Now in Gopal Champu, there's another nice sandalwood analogy used by the gopis in a letter to Krishna, who at that time was living in Mathura. They wrote a letter to Krishna who was living in Mathura. Gopal Champu says, one evening in Mathura, a scented message arrived from the gopis. A scented message arrived from the gopis. When Krishna read it, his resolve to stay in Mathura and to keep his promise to Maharaj Ugrasena crumbled like a sandcastle in the tide. O beloved, the letter read, separation from you has confused our lives. Now the forest has become our home, and our home's a forest. Sandalwood burns our bodies, so we think fire will cool our limbs. We would welcome death to end our pain, but your bold promise to return to Vrindavan has become an obstacle to such relief. What's more, every moment we are away from you feels like a millennium. This is real love. This is the love that we're trying to achieve by every activity we do in Krishna consciousness from day to day. This is the goal. We should never forget. Now, one way that sandalwood is part of Krishna's leelas is that each day, early in the morning, under Mother Yasoda's supervision, I was reading, the cowherd boys decorate Krishna's face with sandalwood and other auspicious substances, beginning with his tilak. In Sri Rupa Chintamani, text 16, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the tilak on Krishna's face is only on his forehead. But some authorities say it extends to his nose, much like the tilak that we as Gaudiya Vaishnavas wear today. And in Govinda Lilamrita chapter 4, verse 17, it's described that to apply tilak on Krishna, his servants generally grind gorochana. Gorochana is a product produced from cows, together with sandalwood, and apply 2 vertical lines on Krishna's face. And then they fill the space in between with black aromatic musk. In between the tilak, they put musk there. And under Mother Yasoda's supervision, there's a servant boy named Makaranda, and he's the most expert in applying this tilak. Just like, there's devotees who apply tilak, and there's devotees who apply tilak. I'm not so good at it, but many times I see devotees, it looks like, it's just perfect how they do it. So that perfection is actually there in that Makaranda, that devotee. He puts the tilak on Krishna. Still other boys also do this service, sometimes using a kunkuma instead of gorochana. Just a detail for you. Sometimes using kumkum instead of gorochana. Great details. Govinda Lilamrita chapter 3, verse 65 describes that the gopis, because they come into the service as well, the gopis like to paint Krishna's forehead crimson color with kumkuma. The boys do their seva, then some of the gopis come and they paint Krishna's forehead crimson color with kumkuma, which the Shastra says reveals his passionate nature and also points to his subservience to Sri Radha, whose feet are smeared with red lac. Now, whenever Krishna's tilak fades, due to exerting himself, in the forest, with the boys or in the Rasa Leela, his friends reapply it, meaning boyfriends or girlfriends, using natural pigments like Manashila from Govardhan Hill. Now you have to excuse me. I do a lot of research. I couldn't figure out what Manashila is. But they replace it with Manashila from Govardhan Hill, Giriraj Govardhan Ki. Now along with tilak, Krishna's forehead sports a dot of sandalwood paste in the center of his forehead, sandalwood pulp at the edges, curly locks of hair along its border, and designs drawn in minerals as well. Wow, Krishna's all attractive. Now the spot of sandalwood in between these two vertical lines of tilak are just above Krishna's eyebrows. And they serve, it's so sweet, as a mystical charm that hypnotizes the gopis who become attracted to gazing at their lover's face. You see how important sandalwood is in the pastimes of Krishna. The spot of sandalwood in between the two vertical lines of tilak are just above Krishna's eyebrows, and it serves as a mystical charm that hypnotizes the gopis who become attracted to gazing at their lover's face. Sandalwood paste. Now in his Mantartha Dipika, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes how when Gaudiya Vaishnava Brahmins chant the syllables of the Kama Gayatri mantra. You know, we have 7 mantras as Brahmanas, and one is the Kama Gayatri mantra. Within that Kama Gayatri mantra, there appears the name Kamadev. Kamadev. And he writes that the syllable Ka is equivalent to the full moon of Krishna's face. The syllable Ma is his right cheek. The syllable De is his left cheek. The syllable Va is that spot of sandalwood on his forehead. And the syllable Ya is the half moon of his forehead itself. So next time the Brahmanas, the devotees who are Brahmanas, chant that line of Gayatri Mantra, you can remember that Va is the spot of sandalwood on Krishna's forehead. Now moving on, Vidagdha Madhava 42b means 42b means the verse 42, but there's 2 parts, so it's part B. Our great hero, Rupa Goswami, he writes, once Vishaka Saki warned Radha of 3 things that have the inconceivable power to attract people to Krishna: his flower garland, his name, and the mysterious sandalwood paste on his forehead. Once Vishaka Saki warned Radha of 3 things that have the inconceivable power to attract people to Krishna: his flower garland, his name, and the mysterious sandalwood paste on his forehead. Hare Krishna. Now, in the book describing Krishna's pastimes with the cowherd boys, we've mentioned this book many times in our discourses. It's called Prayo Bhakti Rasanhava, Rasarnava. It's in chapter 9. It describes that after the cowherd boys decorate Krishna's face, we've gone through that now, the face is decorated and the girls that decorate, then the household servants, they come into the picture next. They dress Krishna in elegant royal robes. They tuck a jeweled dagger in the sash around his waist, and they smear sandalwood paste all over his limbs. And they put a scepter in his hand. Then they tie Krishna's hair in a top knot, and they bind it with the red and golden string, and crown it with a handsome peacock feather. That scripture goes very deep into Sakyaras. And finally, the boys, they place a delicate wreath woven out of tiny flowers on his head. But Krishna's morning pastimes are not over yet. The cowherd boys, they also apply perfumed oils on his transcendental form. But it's described, they're not so necessary, because Krishna's body naturally smells extremely beautiful. In fact, his bodily fragrance has been compared to the pleasing aroma of musk, sandalwood, aguru, saffron, and camphor ground and mixed together. into what is called chatushama, that ground substance of all those auspicious things. When it's all together is called chatushama. And the aroma, I was reading, of chatushama is extremely attractive to the Brajagopis and can be best compared to the fragrance of lotuses mixed with camphor. Lotuses mixed with camphor. Now, in the purport to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Anjali Lila 4, text 197, Srila Prabhupada cites the Garuda Purana to give the exact composition of this Chatushama. There it's stated, Katsu Rikaya Dwa Bhago Chat Farash Chandan Ashutu Kun Kum Asya Tra Yash Chakai Shashina Shat Chatu Shamam. 2 parts of musk, 4 parts of sandalwood, 3 parts of uguru or saffron, and 1 part of camphor when mixed together form chatushama. Now this formula I also saw mentioned in Hari Bhakti Vilas 6.292. Now, during Krishna's pastimes 5,000 years ago, I was reading the perfume makers, those who made the perfume in Braj, would distill oils from various flowers, especially rose, jasmine, and henna, as well as wood like sandalwood and aguru wood. And they used other substances as well, like musk and kush, and saffron, and amber. And I was reading Mother Yasoda, she would purchase the best quality perfumes. That's called sugandha. The best of perfumes is called sugandha. She would purchase all these perfumes, sugandha, to use for Krishna's massage, to scent his bathwater, to perfume his hair, and to anoint him after he was dressed. So, and also she would regularly give these perfumes in valuable bottles to Shri Radha and her friends as presents. And I was reading at Krishna's birthday celebrations, perfumes were one of the gifts given to every visitor who came to Nandagram. So these perfumes, of course, they're different from modern day perfumes in which alcohol is the base for the distilled essential scent. Traditional scented oils in Braj were either undiluted or sandalwood oil was used as the base. But there was no alcohol. And that type of oil, that type of perfume that we're talking about, it remains on the body much longer, 15 to 20 times longer than scents mixed with alcohol. And whereas, of course, alcohol is impure and cannot be directly applied to the body of a deity, these pure oils that we're speaking about, there's no restriction. You can use any oil that's made in that natural way without alcohol. Now, we're still there in the morning pastimes. After Krishna's friends dressed and applied perfumed oils and sandalwood on him, they would go with him out to the pasturing fields with the cows. And the acharyas say that to keep him cool during hot summer days, they would apply sandalwood paste again to the 2 outer portions of his brow, which would make his forehead resemble, it's described, a mystical gemstone. It made his forehead resemble a mystical gemstone. Now in his Ice of Harya Kadambhini, 514, Srila Valadev Bijubhushana, another one of our heroes, he writes that, quote, at the end of the day, when Yashoda and Rohini would welcome Krishna and Balaram back from the pasturing grounds with their cows, as part of their affectionate greeting, they had sandalwood perfumed water sprinkled along the road coming into Braj. Talk about love. They had sandalwood perfumed water sprinkled on the road that Krishna and Balaram and all the cowherd boys and the cows would walk on as they came to Vrindavan. This is culture. This is our culture. We are hopefully one day to become Brajabasis. So therefore these lectures are important so we can know who we are, who is Krishna, what the spiritual world is like, and what we hope to achieve. So important. Now in Radharasa Sudhanidhi 2, Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati, he says that sandalwood also played an integral part of Vrindavaneshwari Srimati Radharani's life. For Srimati Radharani's maidservants also daily massaged and anointed her with scented oils. For it is said that, this is a quote I found, a princess's bath is incomplete without them. A princess's bath is incomplete without them. Who needs any other literature than these literatures which we're studying? It's described these perfumes mesmerized her just as they did for Krishna. To surround herself with the scent of Krishna's body, Radharani sometimes smeared her own limbs with musk oil. Thus, even in her own home, she continued to think, Krishna is just beside me, because Krishna has that musk scent as well. So she put it on, and that would cause her a stimulation for love. Krishna is just beside me. And it's described that because she dried her hair with the smoke of burning a guru, it's said that the aroma of her hair fortified that feeling of Krishna's presence. Quite deep. The aroma of her hair fortified that feeling of Krishna's presence. So in this way, Radha was always, how could you say, intoxicated with the love her perfumes gave her. Now we mentioned the scent of Krishna's body, but the scent of Radha's body is also given in Radharasa Sudhanidhi. It's also there. Seek and ye shall find. There it says that the natural fragrance of Sri Radha's body is like a flower garden sprinkled with camphor dust. Just in your mind's eye, try to picture this or smell it. The fragrance of Radha's body is like a flower garden sprinkled with camphor dust. And when she smears scented oil, such as rose oil, on her limbs, she seems to Krishna to be like a walking bouquet of roses. Krishna thinks like that when he meets her. She's like a walking bouquet of roses. Here in this world, people put on perfumes to attract people to them. But in the spiritual world, the gopas and the gopis and Mother Yasoda, they perfume Krishna's body to become more attracted to him. This is the proper use of perfumes. Everything in Krishna's service. So Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati, he says, when the aromatic breeze from the edge of Radha's garment touches Krishna, he whom liberated yogis fail to attain thinks his life is now a success. And in Govinda Lilamritam 21:24, it says, Chandana Lipta Kaya. Chandana Lipta Kaya, I found that. Radha uses white chandan to cover her body during nights of the full moon. This reduces visibility, and thus her family members can't see her when she goes to meet Krishna in the forest. Because it's all bright out. So she has to go through the forest. So that she may not be noticed, she uses that white sandalwood. We discussed different colors, so she uses the white sandalwood. So no one can see her. So nectarine. And when Radha and Krishna do meet, their secret meeting in the forest, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes in his Gita Vale, Ananga Manjari Chua Chandana Dhoye. Ananga Manjari Chuya Chandana Dhoye. Ananga Manjari applies sandalwood paste on the divine couple. So she gets it twice. She covers herself to go to meet Krishna, and then Ananga Manjari, she's there. And one of her services, Ananga Manjari Chuya Chandana Dhoye, she applies sandalwood paste on the divine couple. So much nectar. Now sandalwood also played an important role in the pastime of the deliverance of the Kaliya serpent. I was reading in Sarata Dharshini 10:16 verses 65 to 67, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that after Kaliya was chastised by the Lord, Kaliya said to him, Krishna, although I am the most sinful, you gave me the most mercy. You have not put your foot on others' heads and marked them with your disc and conch. So with great respect, along with my wives, we will offer you cooling sandalwood pulp from my hand, because your body was burned by the poison from my fangs. But Krishna replied, but applying these ointments will take time. So Kaliya said, yes. When you're a devotee, you want to spend as much time as you can with Hari Guru and Vaishnava. So Kaliya said, yes, then please sit, my Lord. And after making Krishna sit down, Kaliya and his wives, they applied sandalwood pulp all over the Lord's body to cool him down from the poison, the hot poison that came from Kaliya. And it said that Vishwanath says that fulfilled their heart's desire, and that they had attained the mercy of the Lord. So then they left the Jamuna, as instructed earlier by Krishna. Hare Krishna. So a lot of nectar about sandalwood, and we have more. But I think we'll finish today with a verse from Sri Rupa Goswami Prabhupada's Padyavali. This is actually verse 41. He's quoting another saint, Sri Kavi Ratna. It's a short verse, but it's very pertinent to our discussion today. Sri Kavi Ratna says, one who daily sings the glories of Yashoda's son, glories as cooling as sandalwood and camphor, never troubled by Kali Yuga. Rather, at every step, he finds a torrential flood of the sweetest nectar. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Shri Jabhumi Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki, Shri Shivara Ki, Krishna Balaram Ki. So we'll be back. We'll be back in 1 week with more about sandalwood in Krishna's pastimes as a stimulus for developing ecstatic love. Shri Shri Gauranitai Ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram Ki, Shri Shri Radha Shama Sundar Ki, Vrindavaneshwari Shrimati Radharani Ki, Mayapur Dham Ki, Shri Shri Gauranitai Ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtan Yajna Ki, back home, back to Godhead Ki, take all the fallen conditioned souls with us Ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Jai Jai Sisi Radhe, Sharm. May Srila Prabhupada be glorified in the three worlds. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare Krishna, very dear devotees, welcome back once again to our ever ongoing series in the glories of our most beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pastacha Deshatarne. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So we are continuing with our mini-series on stimulation for ecstatic love, and this will be part 10. For this lecture, we will focus on flowers. What role flowers play in Krishna's pastimes and how they can act as a stimulus for awakening love for the divine couple, Shri Shri Radhasham Sundar. There's a very nice verse in the Shastra, Shubha Shita Ratna Bhandagaram, about the potency of both flowers and saints. It's as follows. Asajana sajjana sangi sanghat karoti dushadhyam apiha sadyam pushpas rachchak chambu shiro durudha pipi lika chambuti chandrabimbam. Very beautiful Sanskrit. Quote, by taking shelter of great souls, even a lowly person can achieve the impossible. Just as an ant in the shelter of a flower that has been offered on the head of Lord Shiva can actually perform the feat of touching the crescent moon. It's so beautiful. There are also two of my favorite statements by Srila Prabhupada about flowers. In a Srimad Bhagavatam lecture in Bombay on January 19th, 1975, he said, flowers are the smile of Krishna. Flowers are the smile of Krishna. It's not a long statement, but it doesn't need to be. It's like a sutra. And there's that saying in Chaitanya Charitamrita, quoting Kaviraj Goswami, elegance is truth spoken concisely. Also, once when describing to some disciple pujaris how to do deity worship, Prabhupada commented that, quote, flowers are the jewels of Kali Yuga. Flowers are the jewels of Kali Yuga. Now there's also a famous photo of Srila Prabhupada that appeared on an early BBT publication of Krishna book, on the back of one of the two, it was divided into two parts, two books. This was in the old days, I think in the 70s or 80s, we used to distribute these big Krishna books. And it showed Prabhupada holding a golden colored champak flower. And as the photographer took the photo, Srila Prabhupada said that Lord Chaitanya's transcendental body was the same color as that flower, golden. This is surely, I could just say, seeing with the eyes of devotion. Now, even our beloved Krishna himself affectionately refers to flowers in his immortal Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 26, where he says, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. And such, how could you say, offered flowers take on great importance for devotees as a means of stimulation for ecstatic love. How so? Well, Srila Prabhupada writes in Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, chapter 12. It's a little long, but it's very significant here. As far as Maharaj Ambarish is concerned, he actually performed all the items of devotional service. He first of all engaged his mind upon the lotus feet of Krishna. He engaged his words and his power of speaking in describing the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He engaged his hands in washing the temple of the deity, his ears in hearing the words of Krishna, and his eyes in beholding the deity. He engaged his sense of touch by rendering service to the devotees, and he engaged his sense of smell by relishing the fragrance of flowers offered to Krishna. By relishing the fragrance of flowers offered to Krishna. He engaged his tongue in tasting the tulsi leaves offered to the lotus feet of Krishna, his legs in going to the temple of Krishna, and his head in offering obeisances to the deity of Krishna. And I found a similar instruction is given in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 22, verse 122. Parikrama stavapata japa sankirtana dupa malya ganda mahaprasada bhojana. Bengali. It states, one should circumambulate a temple, recite various prayers, chant softly, chant congregationally,
Sri Gaurahari Vajabhakatavatsala Sri Gaurahari Sri Gaurahari Sahi Goshta Bihari Nanda Jasomati Chitahari Dhira Damodara Ishaye Kana Bhoga Mandire Basi Karaha Bojana Nandira Nideshi Bashi Giri Baradari Baladeva Saha Sokka Vaise Sari Sari Shukta Shakhari Vaji Lalita Kushmanda Dalidana dugda tumi, dadi mocha kanda. Muda bora mash boda roti kabritana. Daskuli pista kakir, kuli payasana. Kapura amrita keli, ramba kirashara. Amrita rasalanga, dvadasha pakora. Luci sinisar puri, ladu rasabali. Bhojana kore na Krishna, hoye kutuhali. Radhikara pakayana, bibida bhanjana. Paramayanande Krishna, kore na bhojana. Chale bale ladu khai, Sri Madhu Mangala. Bagala bajaya, Deya Hari Bolo. Radhikari gani heri, nayane rakone. Tripta hoye khai Krishna, Jasoda Bhavani. Bhojanande piye Krishna, Subhasita Bari. Sabe mukha prakaloy, Hare Sari Sari. Asta mukha prakaliya, Jata Sakagane. Anande Vishrama kore, Baladeva Sane. Jambula rasalane, Tambula masala. Tahake Krishna Chandra, Sukhe Nidradeva. Vishalaka Shiki Pucha, Chamara Dulaya. Apurva Sayaya Krishna, Sukhe Nidayaya. Yasomati Anga Priye, Danishtayanito. Sri Krishna Prasad Radha, Unje Hoye Prito. Lalithari Saki Gana, Avashesha Paya. Mane Mane Sukhe Radha, Krishna Guna Gaya. Hari Lila Ekamatra Jahara Pramoda. Bhogarati Gai Thakur, Bhakti Vinoda. Bhakata Vatsala, Sri Gaura Hari. Bhakata Vatsala, Sri Gaura Hari. Sri Gaura Hari, Sahi Goska Bihari. Sri Gaura Hari, Sahi Goska Bihari. Nanda Jasomati Chita Hari. Nanda Jasomati Chita Hari.